The movie opened with a man suddenly falling into a sealed room. Before he could even figure out what had happened, the death trap had already kicked in. There were 10 numbers on the door and 4 empty slots. He had to find a 4-digit code. But as soon as he touched the numbers, the wall across from him began moving forward. The clues in the room pointed to light, green, time, and 4 portraits. He noticed that the fingers in the portraits pointed like clock hands. They pointed to 4 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and 2 o'clock. So he figured out the code, 4862. He entered it right away. But the door did not open. The wall was already right in front of him. He had no time to try another code. He frantically changed the numbers. But then he realized the code was not the real problem. The door in front of him was never the exit. In the end, he was trapped inside, screaming for help. After the screen went black, the movie title appeared. And this man's death was only the beginning of the game. The story then shifted to Chicago. Soon, the game set its sights on a college student named Zoe. Zoe was good at physics, and she was studying a theory about observation. Later, that theory would help her fight back against the game. But she was anxious and uncomfortable in crowded places. Before Thanksgiving, she stayed alone in her dorm. Then she received a package marked as a gift from her professor. Inside the package, there was a box and a card. Her name was on the card, along with one sentence. Open a new world. Ben, who worked at a small shop, also received a box and a card. The card said, "Do you want to escape your current world?" Meanwhile, financial manager Jason received the same kind of box and card. After they solved the puzzle boxes, they got tickets to Minus Escape Room. The first player to escape the game would win $10,000. They thought this was just an ordinary escape room. They had no idea this game could put them in real danger. The players arrived at the Minus building one after another. The receptionist checked Amanda's ID, took her phone, and said, "Thank you for your service." That meant the organizers already knew who she was. Danny brought a backup phone into the elevator. Then Amanda, Danny, Mike, Jason, Zoe, and Ben gathered in the waiting room on the 3rd floor. What looked like a receptionist was sitting in the glass room beside them. The voice just told them to sit and wait. Amanda picked up a newspaper from the table. The headline said 5 people had died in a fire in Chicago. The headline gave them 2 clues. First, it hinted at the kind of room they were about to enter. Second, there were 6 players, but the article said 5 people had died. That meant only one person might survive this game in the end. After Amanda saw the newspaper, her breathing quickened. At this point, the others still treated everything as a normal game. Danny was obsessed with escape rooms. He said Minus was famous, and no one had ever cleared it. Someone asked about the rules. Danny explained that as long as they escaped within the time limit, they would win. If they failed, the staff would point out the clues they had missed. To start the game, they had to wait for the game master to come in and explain the setup. Ben wanted to go outside for a smoke. But as soon as he grabbed the doorknob, it fell off. Ben quickly explained that he had not used any force. Mike stepped forward to check it, then realized something was wrong. He told everyone to come over and look. That was when they understood the waiting room itself might be the first escape room. The device beside the doorknob looked like an oven dial. It could also be a code lock. Danny immediately got excited and told everyone to search the room for clues. Amanda noticed that all the magazines on the table were addressed to Dr. Wooten. Mike found a screwdriver inside a book. Zoe noticed Fahrenheit 451. The number matched the oven dial by the door. She turned the dial to 451. A machine started up in the room. The heat lamps on the ceiling lit up. At that moment, the others still thought it was just part of the game. Someone even joked about it. But Amanda immediately told Zoe to turn the mechanism off. Zoe tried, but the lock dial was stuck. It could not be turned back. The temperature in the room began to rise. Amanda warned everyone not to touch anything else. They decided to ask the game master for a hint. But the receptionist kept repeating the same line in the same tone. "Please take a seat. Someone will be with you shortly." Zoe noticed something was wrong. While Jason was searching for clues, he saw the sailboat behind the glass and reacted. Then he found a keyhole in the glass. Ben wanted to break the glass. But Danny reminded him that they had to follow the rules in an escape room. When Ben pulled down the fire extinguisher, he triggered even more heating tubes. When Zoe checked the fire extinguisher, she pulled a key out of it. Once the key went into the keyhole, the glass window opened. But there was no real receptionist inside. There was only a creepy mannequin holding a phone and repeating, "Please take a seat. Someone will be with you shortly." Now everyone understood this was not an ordinary waiting room. Everyone looked at Jason. Jason picked up the phone. The same mechanical voice came through the phone. The voice introduced Minus as the world's top escape room design company. If they wanted to get out, they had to follow every rule they had been given. Before Jason could ask anything else, the call was cut off. But none of them had seen any rules. Worse, even the receptionist was fake. Before they could figure it out, the mechanism started again. The window was sealed shut. More heating tubes on both sides started heating up. Amanda was terrified. She said she did not want to play anymore. She wanted out. The others told her to calm down, drink some water, and take off her jacket. They had to find a way out before the room got even hotter. Then the fan above them started blowing hot air. The temperature in the room rose quickly. Everyone immediately began searching for the exit. As Zoe poured water for Amanda, she noticed burned scars on the back of Amanda's neck. Then Zoe followed the clue, "Please use coasters at all times," and pressed down a coaster. A passage immediately appeared in the wall. But as soon as she let go, the passage closed again. They realized all 6 coasters had to be weighed down to keep the passage open. Jason climbed in first to explore the way. Mike took the screwdriver to remove the wire mesh at the exit. Amanda first planned to stay behind and hold the mechanism down. But when she looked into the dark, deep tunnel, she broke down. She had experienced an explosion and burns in Iraq. Since then, she had suffered from claustrophobia. Zoe thought of using the water glasses to press down the coasters. But Amanda had already drunk some of the water, so the last glass was not heavy enough. Then the fan above them turned into a flamethrower. It felt like a final countdown. Ben suddenly remembered that he had a flask on him. He poured the liquor into the glass. The coaster finally stayed pressed down. Everyone rushed into the passage. After escaping, they entered a small cabin-like space. Danny still believed what had happened was just a game effect. Amanda wanted to call the police. But Danny's backup phone had no signal. When they heard there might be several more rooms ahead, the others grew even more uneasy. Then Jason found the key to the first lock on the wooden door. But the second lock needed a 7-letter word. The clue was "You'll go down in history." Combined with the reindeer abbreviations on the wall, it led them to Rudolph. Ben told them to try it. The lock opened. But once the lock opened, Ben's expression changed. The name seemed to trigger a memory. Danny still thought the rooms ahead would be even more fun. Everyone walked out of the cabin. Outside, snow was falling. As soon as they stepped out, the cabin door closed and locked behind them. They stood in the snow, barely able to believe they were still inside a building. The last room had been too hot, so many of them had taken off their jackets. Now they were shivering from the cold. The temperature kept dropping. Danny was still not nervous. He still thought it was all just a game effect. Then he suddenly slammed into a transparent barrier and fell straight down. Moments later, the mechanisms around them opened. Freezing air poured into the room. The cabin mechanisms also sealed every door and window. Inside the freezing room, they found an iron door with a keyhole and one clue. True north is a lie. Amanda found a down jacket. But she did not fight the others for it. Instead, she told everyone to take turns wearing it. Then Mike followed the gaze of a husky statue and found a fishing rod in a tree. When Ben nervously pulled out a lighter, his foot slipped into an ice hole. They realized there might be a clue hidden in the hole. Zoe found a compass in the pocket of the down jacket. Near the polar bear model, the compass needle moved strangely. Zoe followed it and found a magnet hidden inside the bear's mouth. They tied the magnet to the fishing line and lowered it into the water. Soon, something moved underwater. Jason was starting to struggle, so he asked Zoe for the down jacket. Soon, they pulled a large block of ice out of the water. A key was frozen in the middle of the ice. They dropped it. They hit it. But the ice would not break. Ben no longer wanted to cooperate. He only wanted one more smoke. He held the lighter tightly in his hand. Amanda and Mike's hands were already frozen stiff. It seemed their only option was to melt the ice with heat. Jason thought of Ben's lighter. They could use the lighter to start a fire and melt the ice. Ben was not very willing. He tossed the lighter onto the ground and told the others to pick it up themselves. The others had nothing to say. Seeing everyone near their limit, Danny stepped forward to pick up the lighter. He bent down and picked it up. The next second, the ice suddenly collapsed. Danny fell into the ice hole along with the lighter. Before anyone could react, the current under the ice swept him away. He could not find the hole he had fallen through. Amanda tried to jump in and save him. Jason stopped her. He explained that there was an undercurrent below. Even if Amanda found Danny, she would not be able to swim back to the hole with him. If she jumped in now, Amanda would only put herself in danger too. All they could do was search the ice for any trace of Danny. They kept calling Danny's name, but they still could not find him. Someone realized the current might have swept Danny somewhere else. In the end, Danny did not make it out. After what happened to Danny, the others finally understood the game was truly deadly. Even the so-called rules from the phone now felt terrifying. They could not touch mechanisms randomly. They could not forcefully destroy the rooms. They could no longer treat the countdown as a normal game effect. Mike was furious and demanded to know what Ben had done. Because Ben had seen Danny's accident more clearly than anyone. Ben explained that Danny had only bent down to pick up the lighter, and then the ice suddenly cracked. But Mike did not believe him. Amanda remembered that Danny had said there should be a game master in an escape room. But they still had not seen any game master. So they began to suspect Ben might be the game master hiding among them. At that moment, their trust completely broke down. Seeing everyone suspect him, Ben quickly explained that he only worked at a junk store. He was not a game master at all. Then he lashed out at the others and even brought up Amanda's scars. Amanda said those scars came from the Iraq War. Ben insisted that compared with everyone else, he was the normal one. As the argument escalated, Jason stepped in. He reminded everyone that they had already confirmed the rooms could kill people. If they did not want to freeze to death, they had to get the key out of the ice as soon as possible. Ben's lighter was gone. They could only use body heat to melt the ice. Zoe reminded Jason that Danny had just died. Jason did not stop. Instead, he reminded them that hypothermia could destroy their sense of direction and judgment. If it kept getting worse, they could pass out and never wake up. Then he ordered everyone to put their hands on the ice block. They had no choice. They had to melt the ice with their own body heat. But the temperature in the room kept dropping. Everyone was numb and stiff from the cold. Mike wore the down jacket and held the ice block in his arms. Jason already had a theory. Whoever designed this game might know each of them very well. Jason flashed back to what had happened at sea. He had once gone through a similar situation at sea with a friend. They had also survived extreme cold. That friend had also worn a red down jacket. Back in the room, Mike could not hold on any longer and slipped into a coma. By then, the key had already emerged from the ice. Jason picked up the key and went to open the door. But hypothermia had already made him lose his sense of direction. He staggered around for a long time before finding the iron door. But even after the key went in, the door would not open, no matter how hard he turned it. Just as everyone fell into despair, the exit appeared behind them. They ran toward it with everything they had. At that moment, the ice floor also began to break and collapse. At the last second, Ben slid across the ice and barely escaped. Before anyone could catch their breath, they were thrown into the next room. They found themselves in an upside-down pool room. An 8-ball pool table hung upside down in the center of the room. Then the stairs suddenly shot upward. A phone rang. Electrical sounds crackled. Then music started. It sounded like the countdown for a new round. They knew they could not waste time, so they started searching the room. They saw a door above them. But that door had no handle. Zoe noticed that the name Dr. Wooten seemed to appear in every room. Mike noticed that the 8-ball was missing from the upside-down pool table. Then the music ended. A piercing signal rang out. Then the floor suddenly dropped away. Only then did they realize the rule. Every time the signal sounded, another piece of floor would disappear. Amanda found a box under the bar that needed a 4-digit code. Zoe noticed the square albums on the wall looked like a sliding puzzle. She risked crossing the bottomless gap. With Mike's help, she climbed up and completed the puzzle. The completed image matched the 9-ball, the 8-ball, and the 10-ball on the pool table. Everyone thought the code was 9810. Amanda entered it, but it was still wrong. The signal screamed again, and another piece of floor dropped away. Now, there were only 2 pieces of floor left in the room. To keep themselves from falling, Mike and Ben climbed onto the puzzle shelf. But the danger was not over. The top screw of the puzzle shelf started turning on its own. The whole shelf instantly became unstable. The cabinet could no longer support the weight of 3 people. Jason told Mike to move to the pool cue rack beside him. Mike tried, but he did not dare to move over. Jason grew anxious and urged him to get off the shelf immediately. If Mike stayed there, they might all fall together. At that moment, the shelf suddenly sprang back. Zoe fell straight to the floor. In a daze, Zoe seemed to flash back to the plane crash. The chaotic calls came back, along with her mother's voice. Jason quickly slapped her awake. Amanda found it strange. She seemed to have seen Zoe on the news before. It turned out Zoe was the only survivor of that plane crash. This hinted that every player might have survived a different accident. After Jason woke Zoe up, he helped her climb back up. The piece of floor she had fallen on might be the next one to drop. After waking up, Zoe kept muttering that she got it. The room was upside down, so the code had to be reversed too. The real code was not 9810. It was 0186. The image also made sense when viewed upside down. Amanda successfully unlocked the code. She took the 8-ball out of the cabinet. The ball was also the doorknob they needed to escape. Just then, the floor dropped again. Only one foothold remained. Everyone immediately began climbing toward the exit. But Amanda was in the most dangerous position. With the entire floor gone, she first had to jump to the pool bar on the other side. Then she had to edge her way toward the exit. She pushed off, jumped, and grabbed the edge of the bar. There was no visible bottom beneath her. Amanda could only inch along the edge. Right then, the handle on door 8 suddenly fell off. Amanda instinctively tried to get it back. That left her in serious danger. Everyone immediately told her to let it go. Amanda had no choice but to cling to the phone cord beside her. Then the phone cord suddenly snapped. Amanda fell into the deep pit below and did not make it out. She died while trying to help everyone escape. The others were still grieving, but they had to keep moving. At that point, survival was all they could focus on. They entered the next escape room. Surgical lights came on. The room had been set up like a hospital ward. There were 6 hospital beds inside. Each medical file matched a past accident from one of the players. That included Danny and Amanda, who were already gone. Zoe checked Amanda's file. It said homemade bomb explosion, sole survivor. That was when she discovered what all of them had in common. They had all survived deadly accidents. Zoe had been in a plane crash with her mother. A week later, she was the only one left alive. Jason had gone out to sea with his college roommate. At the time, both of them were wet and freezing. They had only one red down jacket left. In the end, only Jason was rescued. Ben had caused a car accident after drunk driving. No one else in the car survived. Only he survived. Mike had watched his younger brother fail to make it out because there was not enough oxygen. In the end, only Mike survived. The game makers had already looked into them in detail. Every escape room had been built around their past experiences. The red down jacket in the second room matched Jason's past experience in the cold. And Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer matched Ben's past car accident. That also explained why Ben looked so off after solving the puzzle. It also explained why he stopped helping with the clues afterward. The game makers could even use the names of people close to them to get the boxes into their hands. Zoe then checked Danny's file. She found that he had been the only survivor of a carbon monoxide poisoning accident. By now, the connection between all 6 players was clear. Each of them was the only survivor of a different accident. The game makers had brought them together to see which survivor was the luckiest. Right after they finished talking, the mechanism started again. The TV showed Dr. Wooten modifying his body and pushing his limits. A 5-minute countdown also appeared on the screen. Everyone rushed to look for clues. After learning the truth, Zoe saw the game differently from the others. Under the game maker's rules, she believed that no matter how hard they tried, only one person would survive. Jason and the others found 3 X-rays. At first, they thought the hand signs meant 210. Ben immediately realized that was wrong. This puzzle had been designed for him. His cousin was deaf, so Ben knew sign language. The 3 hand signs really meant E, K, and G. That meant electrocardiogram. Meanwhile, Zoe picked up a stick and started smashing things around the room. She went straight for the cameras. She used the quantum Zeno effect to explain what she was doing. If an atom was constantly being observed, it would not change. So she believed that as long as the game planners kept watching, they could never escape the ending planned for them. First, she had to get rid of the surveillance. The others did not understand her. They thought she had lost control. They could only keep looking for clues. Jason and the others found the EKG equipment. Time was running out. Jason convinced Ben to hook himself up to the EKG first, but Ben's heart rate was too low. Nothing happened. Jason immediately demanded that someone else try. He thought Mike's heart rate would be higher. So he forced Mike to do it. Mike's heart rate reached 140. Still, nothing happened. Jason noticed that the video kept mentioning a strong enough heart and pushing the limits. That made him think the clue might not be a normal heart rate test. It might require pushing the heart to its limit. So he took out the defibrillator. Mike immediately refused when he saw it. Jason told him that in one more minute, the poison gas would be released. Everyone would lose consciousness. Jason then brought up Mike's mine accident. He mentioned Carl, Mike's dead brother. He kept telling Mike that only Mike could save everyone now. Mike was cornered. He had no choice but to agree to the shock. Jason activated the defibrillator. After the shock, Mike's heart rate shot past 200, but the mechanism still did not accept it. Then Mike went still too. Ben tried to give him chest compressions, but he could not save him. When the countdown reached 0, toxic gas began filling the room. Jason suddenly pulled out a chair and sat down. He realized that pushing the limit could mean the highest heart rate, or it could mean the lowest heart rate. He attached the electrode pads to himself and started lowering his heart rate. Based on Danny's file, the gas here was probably connected to carbon monoxide. Jason had experienced hypothermia before. He also knew that a person's heart rate would drop in extreme cold. So he forced himself to calm down. He lowered his heart rate to 50. The mechanism accepted it. Jason climbed out right away. Ben wanted to pull Zoe out with him, but Zoe insisted on staying and told Ben to leave quickly. Ben had no choice. He could only leave first. After the exit closed, Zoe eventually could not hold out anymore. She collapsed on the floor. When Ben reached the next room, he was filled with regret. He felt he should have been more forceful and pulled Zoe out with him. Jason thought Zoe had chosen to stay. If she died, she only had herself to blame. Ben could not accept Jason's coldness. He also believed Jason had caused Mike's death. Ben started questioning Jason about how his friend had died years ago. At the time, the two of them had only one jacket. Ben suspected Jason had not survived because of luck. Jason did not deny it. He only said life and death came down to a person's choice. Now it was Ben's turn to choose. Ben was no match for Jason. So he could only swallow his anger for now and work with him. There was a hatch in front of them. As soon as they opened the hatch, they started hallucinating. They realized the hatch handle had been coated with something. The hint on the wall said they could leave, but they had to find the antidote first. Soon, the hallucinations got worse. The whole room seemed to spin. Ben found a single-dose syringe labeled antidote. He knew there was only one dose. But he still told Jason. Jason immediately rushed over to take it. The two started fighting. Jason grabbed Ben's leg and twisted it hard enough to injure it. Then he got up, picked up the antidote, and prepared to inject himself. Ben dragged himself up and lunged at him. The back of Jason's head hit the corner of the wall. He collapsed right there. Ben grabbed the antidote and injected himself. The hallucinations then faded. Jason did not make it out of that escape room. After that, Ben fell through the exit and into the next escape room. This brought the story back to the opening scene. The man from the opening had not failed because he could not find the numbers. He had failed because the order was wrong. The correct order should have been 4826. But Ben was rushing. In his panic, he entered 2846. Meanwhile, staff entered the hospital room with the poison gas to clean up the scene. A staff member saw the respirator nearby. He assumed the oxygen mask had failed to save Zoe. In reality, Zoe was not dead. She had used the respirator ahead of time to stay alive. She had done it to avoid surveillance from the people behind Minus. When the staff came in to clean the scene, she seized the chance to fight back. She also took the staff member's weapon. Then she left the escape room with the gun. Meanwhile, Ben was almost forced into a dead end by the crushing mechanism. After Zoe left the poison gas room with the gun, she continued through the behind-the-scenes passage. Soon, she found a female control room operator. On the female administrator's screen, she saw that Ben was in danger. Zoe raised the weapon and forced her to shut down the mechanism. The female administrator had no choice but to do it. But Ben still did not show up on the screen. The female administrator said Ben was probably already dead. Zoe immediately demanded that the female administrator take her out. Meanwhile, Ben opened the door and reached the lobby outside the escape room. In the lobby, he saw the equipment running the game. The screen on the wall showed that Ben was now the only surviving player. The game master said Ben was the most unexpected winner. He had originally thought Jason would win. He had not expected Ben to be the one who survived. Ben asked whether the game administrator had designed these deadly escape rooms. The game master said he was only in charge of monitoring and operations. The real designer was someone else. This project was entertainment for powerful people. They watched players struggle to survive and turn on each other. To keep it fresh, Minus designed a different theme every year. The year before last, it was scholars. Last year, it was college athletes. This year, it was survivors. They only wanted to see whether so-called luck actually mattered. To make Ben relax, the game administrator took out the lighter and cigarette Danny had used earlier and handed them to him. But even though Ben had made it to the end, the game master still had no intention of letting him go. He used horse racing as an example. After the race ended, the horse was not the one that got rewarded. Just then, Ben pulled the wooden splint out of his injured leg and fought back. At the same time, the people behind the scenes seemed to change the game at the last minute. Zoe arrived right then and saved Ben in time. But because of the lack of oxygen, Ben had already passed out. Zoe looked around and saw that the game master had already run away. When she turned back to wake Ben, the game administrator suddenly appeared and tackled her. The game administrator told Zoe she could not leave until the game ended. In the chaos, Zoe's gun fell to the floor. After Ben woke up, he picked up the gun just in time. He fired at the game master. Zoe confirmed that the game master was no longer a threat. Then she helped Ben escape. The status wall behind them showed that the game master had been eliminated. But Zoe and Ben were still in the game. Ben asked Zoe if she had come back to save him. Zoe said she did not want to be the only survivor again. Ben was taken to the hospital for treatment. But when Zoe brought the police back to the building, the place was already empty. Every trace had disappeared. No matter how Zoe explained it, the police did not believe her. They thought it might have only been her hallucination. They believed Ben even less. Doctors had already found 3 illegal drugs in his blood. Zoe still found the name Dr. Wooten written on the wall. It looked like a deliberate taunt. Everything looked like a nightmare. 6 months later, Zoe and Ben met again. Ben had already started a new life. But Zoe had never given up the investigation. She discovered that Minus had covered up the players' deaths as different accidents. Mike was said to have died of a sudden heart attack. Jason was said to have had a motorcycle accident after using drugs. Danny was ruled to have drowned in a lake. Amanda was ruled to have fallen from a cliff while rock climbing alone. In the official story, Zoe and Ben were simply the lucky survivors. Ben believed they should move on. Even the police could not find anything. That meant Minus was far more powerful than they had imagined. But Zoe could not accept that the people behind the game had still not been punished. Amanda, Mike, and Danny had gone through all of this with them. She could not pretend Amanda, Mike, and Danny had never existed. Zoe vowed to find the real person behind it all. She would not let them keep hurting people. She took apart the Minus Company logo. She discovered that it was an endless Escher staircase. Once she separated it, the numbers 22 and 23 appeared in the loop when viewed from a certain angle. After working through the numbers, Zoe realized they looked like coordinates. They pointed to downtown Manhattan. Zoe had already made up her mind. She bought plane tickets for 2 weeks later. After the plane crash, she had never dared to fly again. Now, she asked Ben if he wanted to go with her. Ben thought this was not a wise decision. But Zoe had saved his life before. So Ben still agreed. The scene then cut to a plane in crisis. The flight attendants were looking for clues. They tried to solve the puzzle and get into the cockpit. They solved the code in the end, but it was already too late to pull the plane up. The plane went down. But all of this was only an escape room simulation. A staff member reported to the person in charge of Minus. The Minus boss was pleased with the simulation result. The Minus boss believed the game would not be fun unless Minus gave Zoe a chance. They had already intercepted Zoe's flight information. Once Zoe overcame her fear of flying, Minus had the chance to start the next game. The ending also made one thing clear. The oven room, the freezing room, the upside-down room, the poison gas room, the hallucination room, and the crushing room had not been designed at random. The oven room matched Amanda's burns from the explosion. The freezing room matched Jason's survival in the cold. The upside-down room matched Zoe's plane crash. The poison gas room matched Danny's carbon monoxide poisoning accident. The hallucination room matched Ben's drunk driving accident. The crushing room matched Mike's mine accident. And the plane room set up the sequel.